Hello and welcome to the In Focus series section of Drishti IAS. I am Aisha Singh, and in today's video we will be discussing about India update its National Determined Contribution, popularly known as NDCs targets. So let's look at the timeline of the video. First we will be looking at what is the news, and then we will be looking about in detail about the news. Then the updated NDCs, that is nationally determined contribution, what is the update that has taken place. Then the changes made in the NDCs. Panch Amrit, what is Panch Amrit that PM Modi had talked about in COP26 in Glasgow. Then India's progress, what has India done till now to achieve its NDCs. Then the tricky Glasgow promises. In the end, we will be looking at prelims MCQ and a mains practice question. This topic is of relevance from General Studies paper 3, environmental pollution and degradation. From both prelims and mains, it is important to know about the targets of the national determined contribution of India, what changes has been made in it, and what are Panchamrit that PM Modi had talked about in Glasgow. So that's all. Now let's get started and see the news. And this news has been taken from the explained section of Indian Express, and it reads, as India strengthens its climate targets, these climate targets are NDCs. A look at the progress so far, what new. So there are three components in it. First is the climate target, that is the NDCs. So this is the first one. Then second is the progress that India has made so far towards it achieving its NDCs. And the third one is what is the new update in it. So let's get started and see that what are the targets that India has officially updated. So what has happened, that when Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the COP26, that is Conference of Party 26 in Glasgow last year, he made 5 promises about India's commitment to tackle climate change. So he made 5 promises, and those 5 promises are popularly known as Panch Amrit. So what has happened is, out of those 5 promises, 2 promises has been officially added by India in its NDCs. That is, 2 promises has been enhanced and upgraded as official national determined contribution targets of India. So the government has converted 2 of the 5 official targets that Prime Minister Narendra Modi talked about in Glasgow, and it is part of India's international climate commitments for 2030. So the target year is 2030. Now let's see. India's NDC or nationally determined commitments have been updated. This is the important word, that this is not the first time that we are talking about this. It has been updated. NDCs are already in place. See, NDC is nationally determined commitments, and every country has given its own NDCs according to their own criteria to tackle climate change with response or with commitment to the 2015 Paris Agreement. So every country has their own specific NDCs, and India has updated its NDC, and 2 targets has been updated and has officially been added in the NDCs. Then both of which are enhancement of existing targets. So the 2 targets that are updated has been enhanced. It means they are already in place, but they have been enhanced. They have been upgraded of its existing targets. We will just be talking about what are those targets. And they have submitted it to the UN climate body, that is United Nations climate body. So the 2015 Paris Agreement requires each and every country to set self-determined climate target. It's not that every or all the countries has been given a single target. No, every single country have to make their own targets which they feel they will be able to achieve in the coming 5 to 10 years. Then they are progressively updated with more ambitious goals every few years. And India's first NDC, that is the first national determined commitment, was submitted in 2015, and 2015 was the year when the Paris Agreement was finalized. So India's first NDC was also given in 2015. So now let's talk about that what are India's NDC, original NDCs for the year 2030. That there are 3 natural national determined contributions of India that targets the year 2030. So let's see this. See, these are very important from both prelims and mains perspective. These will definitely enhance your marks if you will quote these facts in your answers, and many a times this will also be able to help you in your answer writing and your essays also. If the essay is related to agriculture or environment or climate, then these will really help you fetch good marks. So this slide becomes all the more important. So India's original NDC says that a 33 to 35%, very important fact, a 33 to 35% reduction means minimizing in emissions intensity from 2005 levels. So 33 to 35% reduction in emissions intensity till 2030. In all 3, the target year is 2030. Then second one being at least 40%. It means at least you have to do this much. At least 40% of total electricity generation to come from non-fossil renewable sources. So there are 2 important words in this point, that is 40%, and that this 40% electricity generation should come from non-fossil renewable sources. Then the third point is an increase in forest cover to create an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Important one point becomes in this is carbon sink. So out of these 3 targets of India, for which the target year is 2030, there are 2 targets which has been enhanced and has been updated to become. So this is the first target and the second target. These 2 targets will be enhanced. So the first is 33 to 35% reduction in emissions intensity from 2005 level, and second is 40% of total electricity generation should be from non-fossil renewable sources. So these 2 targets, first and the second target, will be upgraded. We'll just talk about that what has been updated or what has been upgraded in these 2 targets. So now let's talk about the Panch Amrit. Last year in 2021, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the COP26 in Glasgow, he talked about 5 promises, or he made 5 promises, and those 5 promises are popularly known as Panch Amrit. So what are these Panch Amrit? So first Amrit that he talked about is that India will increase its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030. So the target year here is also 2030, non-fossil energy capacity. Then the second Amrit is India will meet 50% of its energy requirement from renewable energy by 2030. Here also the target year is 2030. Then the third Amrit is India will reduce the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons till 2030. Target year here is also 2030. Then the fourth Amrit is that by 2030, India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by 45% from a previous target of 35%. Here also the target year is 2030. So if you will see that out of 5, in 4 the target year is 2030, and the 5th Amrit is one of the most talked about point was that India will achieve the target of net zero by 2070. So out of 5, the 4 Amrits has a target year of 2030, and out of these 5 there are 2 points which has been upgraded and has been officially added in the India's NDCs. And so first is the 4th one, by 2030 India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by 45%. And earlier in India's original NDCs, what was the number? The number here was 30 to 35%. I'll just show you. See this. Here the number was 30 to 35%. So the 30 to 35% has been increased to how much? Look at here. It has been increased to 45%. So the earlier was 30 to 35% and it has now been increased to 45%, a jump of 10%. Second one is, see, this talks about electricity generation from non-renewable energy sources. How much is the percentage? 40%. And what is the upgraded percentage? See here, the upgraded percentage is 50%. So from 40%, this has been upgraded to 50%, an increase of 10%. So these 2 targets, Amrit 2 and Amrit 4, has been officially included in India's NDCs. So these 2 has been upgraded and updated. So now let's see this. See, India is pledging to become net zero. What is net zero? See, net zero does not mean that India will not produce any kind of carbon. It means that whatever they will be producing, they will be able to accommodate that. So the footprint will be equal to the handprint. This is what net zero means. How much one is producing, the same should be able to accommodate that much. That is called net zero. India is pledging to become net zero by which year? 2070. And then what about China? China is pledging to become net zero by 2060, 10 years before India, while US is pledging to become net zero by 2050, 20 years before India. So see this chart. This talks about, see, this target for 2030. These are the existing NDCs, updated NDCs, and this is the progress. So see, the target for 2030 is emission intensity reduction. The earlier one, the original NDCs talked about 33 to 35%, and the updated NDC talks about how much? 33 to 35% has been updated to 45%. And the share of non-fossil fuels in electricity generation, the original NDC was 40%, which has been updated to how much? 50%. Try to recall all these facts many a times, because these will become very important for the coming 2023 prelims and mains examination, because these are the updation that has taken place in India's nationally determining contributions. Then let's talk about the carbon sink, and carbon sink is creation of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of additional sink. This has remained same as earlier. We will be talking about the progress made by India in the coming slides in detail. So if you want to take the screenshot of this. Now let's talk about the progress made by India in the recent past, and this says that India is on way to achieve its existing targets much before the timeline of 2030 which is set. So India is on its way to achieve much before 2030. Presently it is 2022 which is going on, and the target year is 2030. So much before 2030 we are on the path to achieve it. So the second one is India's emissions intensity was 24% lower than the 2005 levels in the year 2016 itself. So we are almost on the verge of achieving the target much before its time. So in 2016 only we were almost on the same level. Then the third point talks about that 33 to 35% reduction target has already been achieved or is very close to being achieved, and this will be done before the target of 2030. Then further reduction of 10 to 12% will be able to meet. This will not be able to create much problem for India because the 33 to 35% target has been increased to 45%. So if we are able to achieve this much below time, because we are able to achieve this very well and perform really well, that is why the target has been upgraded, because we will be able to achieve it in the coming future. Now, at least 40% of electricity coming from non-fossil fuels has officially been reached. So, from non-fossil fuels, the electricity which is coming is around 40%. And according to the Power Ministry, I know this has become little factual, but these are important facts. According to the power industry, around 41.5% of India's current installed electric capacity of 403 gigawatt. The 403 gigawatt is the present capacity of India. Installed electricity capacity is now powered by non-fossil fuels. So the non-fossil fuels are playing a very important role. Now see the percentage. See, renewables, which are wind energy, solar energy and others, they alone account for more than 28% of this capacity. So the renewable energy is performing really well, and hydropower is also contributing over 11%. The 10% rise in the share of non-fossil fuels in electricity generation is not an unrealistic target, as we are already running much ahead of the target time. So increasing the target for India is not a very difficult job, as we are performing really well and the progress made by India has been really good when it comes to the non-fossil fuels criteria. So now let's see this chart. These are promises and whether included in the new national determined contributions or not. So first one is non-fossil fuel electricity installed capacity to reach 500 gigawatt. This has not been included. Second is at least 50% of total installed electricity generation capacity to come from non-fossil fuel sources. I don't think I need to tell this answer. You people will be able to recall, as I have repeated in many a times. This has been included. And third one is reduction of 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent from cumulative projected emissions between now and 2030. This has not been included. And at least 45% reduction in emissions intensity of GDP by 2030. This has been included. And the last one is net zero status by 2030. This cannot be included because, see, net zero status India will be achieving by 2070, and that is a much area in the far year that we are talking about, while in NDCs we talk about years of our coming 5 to 10 years target. That is why the net zero target has not been included in the NDCs, and 2 targets has been included inside it. So now let's talk about few of the promises that has not been included in the official NDCs of India. That is, of the current installed capacity of 403 gigawatt, over 236 gigawatt or 58.5% is coming from fossil fuel sources. Even though we are doing really well in terms of the increase shown by the non-fossil fuels, but still we are a lot more dependent on the fossil fuel sources, and that contributes around 436 gigawatt out of 403. So this is around 50%. So non-fossil fuels makes only 167 gigawatt. So the percentage of fossil fuels is much more than non-fossil fuels. So the capacity additions from non-fossil sources would have to triple in the next 10 years to reach the target of 500 gigawatt. So the target till 2030 that India has given is they need to reach 500 gigawatt target from non-fossil fuels. But if we will see that India's performance, then fossil fuels has a much higher percentage as compared to the non-fossil fuels. So India needs to perform really very well to achieve this target. Otherwise, target under which we need to achieve this would not be able to take place. Then the total installed electricity capacity has more than doubled in the last 10 years. That is from 199 gigawatt in 2012 to 403 gigawatt now. In this regard, we are doing fine, that the total installed electricity capacity has almost doubled. Now, India's annual projections are expected to rise from about 3.3 billion tons to about 4 billion tons and emitting anywhere between 35 to 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in total by the year to 2030. See, this is the most tricky part or the most tricky target that India has to achieve. That is, I'll just show you. This is, we have just talked about that why 500 gigawatt target is becoming difficult. Then this we have done. Okay, this one. Reduction of 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide. This is the most tricky target that India has, because see, India is one of the biggest emitters of carbon dioxide along with US, China, Russia, European Union. And in the coming years, as more and more manufacturing will take place in India, this will become extremely difficult for India to achieve the 1 billion ton of carbon dioxide emissions. So now let's see again the data. Okay, so this is that we will be emitting by the year 2030, we will be emitting around 35 to 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide. So even if we will be reducing 1 billion ton of carbon dioxide from it, that will only constitute to about 1 to 3% of the complete whatever we are emitting. So this will not be of much help, because the target will remain same till 2030, but whatever we will be emitting will even increase by that year. So that will not, this is the most tricky target in this respect. So this is all. Now let's look at a prelims MCQ, and you people need to tell me the answer in the comment section. And this says that India's nationally determined contributions, that is NDCs, are as commitments by countries under which agreement or protocol. Then this is A, B, C, D. A is Cancun Convention, B is Nagoya Protocol, C is Kyoto Protocol, and D is Paris Agreement. So India's NDCs or the NDCs of any country was made to fulfill the commitment of which protocol or agreement? Cancun, Nagoya, Kyoto, Paris. I think you will be able to do this one. Now let's talk about the last aspect of today's video, that is the mains practice question. And the mains practice question talks about what are the recent changes made to India's NDC as part of its pledge to Paris Agreement. So here what is the main word? What? What are the changes that you have just now seen? Discuss its impact on India's climate goals. This question is of 250 words, so try to do your answer writing practice. And there are two commands. First is what? Second is discuss. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time, keep reading and keep writing.